All right, hi guys, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Day after Thanksgiving.
Yes, we're all full and bloated.
And happy.
And happy.
And thankful.
And thankful, hashtag thankful, grateful, blessed.
Can I just tell you, every yoga class I've taken for the past week, the message has been gratitude.
Yeah, what are you thankful for?
Picture somebody in your mind and that you're thankful for. And I'm like, oh my God, can we please just do some yoga?
And then it's like you get through Thanksgiving, the next day everyone's just back to bitching at each other.
I think the funniest thing was that the administration came out with, did you see this list of how to deal with mega, oh my God, what is it called? Mega extremism at family parties. And if this person says this is how you rebut. You didn't see that?
No. Is
literally,
this really where we're at?
Literally like pages of how to deal with the mega,
this was like a serious article?
Extremism. This is serious. The administration put this out because we're all just mega.
How do you think that would go at our family party?
Well, we all agree at our family. I think we
even
do.
if we all didn't, that wouldn't end well.
No, it would. I mean, you see our card games. Oh, my God. People throw down.
No, we can't even get through a simple game.
So happy belated Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
And just to kind of bring the Thanksgiving.
Well, one thing that I do have to be thankful for, and I think we should all be thankful for because she is.
Well, do you want to see her first or Biden?
Okay, do Biden because he's actually talking about. I think this was on Thanksgiving, right? Or the day before?
I don't know. It's had to be the day before, where he pardons the turkeys.
Just to get here, Liberty and Bell had to beat some tough odds in competition. They had to work hard to show patience and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles. You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in. It's kind of warm in Brazil right now.
Oh my God.
Britney's tour, guys. Britney's tour. Britney's on tour.
We all wish she was on tour again, you know?
I mean,
were the turkeys there when he was talking?
No, Liberty and Bell were off camera somewhere, but right after that speech, he goes over to the Liberty and Bell, that's their names, Liberty and Bell, and he pardons them. And I don't know, do they like send them to some magical turkey farm where they live forever?
His house.
His house. Is there
His basement.
Is there a turkey named Schmunter Schmeit in there?
Oh my God.
Oh, so there you go. All right,
it just never gets old.
So there's your Biden news story for our little segment. What do you got?
Well, you know,
I'm thinking of Dallas cheerleader.
Cowboys and the national treasure that is Dolly Parton. Protect her at all costs.
National treasure.
Dolly Parton is 77 years old.
Who does not like Dolly Parton?
How do you not like her?
I don't know.
She's hysterical one.
Her politics are kind of garbage, though, aren't they?
I don't know. I probably, because I feel like, aren't they all? But
well, I think what kind of supersedes her politics is that she does it in such a nice way.
I thought you were going to say her breasts.
I mean, how do you not just love Dolly Parton?
I don't know. I mean, I love her.
She's great in the movie. She's been even back in, what was it, Seal Magnolias or whatever it was called. Love it.
She's got that Southern charm.
But she's funny and she makes fun of herself too. Anyway, she's 77 years old. She put on a halftime show for the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Commanders game on Thanksgiving.
Oh, I didn't know this was an actual performance.
It was a halftime performance.
I thought this was like her playing around like Britney in her house.
No.
Oh my God,
this was in front of thousands and thousands of
millions
of people.
Oh my God, let's see it.
Dolly Parton, again, I just want to reiterate that she is 77 and she looks better than I ever will.
This must just piss Martha Stewart right off.
And she comes out in this getup singing Queen.
She looks better than them.
Look at her. Just look at her. boobs out. Tiny shorts.
Plus her voice.
I mean,
Wow.
how do you not love that? And
She looks amazing.
here's the thing. I'm sure people there. I haven't looked at the comments, but I'm sure you're getting comments from all over the place. But the fact is, that's fun. She come so unexpected. I think.
I mean, who would who would think that up?
Yeah.
Except her.
And I just good for her.
So she's got to be on some type of human growth hormone or something. I don't know. How are you 77 and your hair looks that good? Unless
That's
it's a wig.
It's a wig. She's worn wigs forever. She says it.
Her voice still sounds
To
that
me,
good.
that's the most amazing thing. You could still listen to her. Right,
Yes.
there's no awkwardness. There's no.
It's not like you
you're not
sound
going,
old.
Oh my God, you
Yeah.
sound terrible. No, she still has this likability.
Yeah.
She's the internet actually blew up after this, thinking this is probably the best halftime show we've seen in 10
true.
years.
Bring
on
her for
So
bring her for
true.
this 2024 halftime
I mean,
show.
she's in no clothes.
I
She's
want
got
Dolly.
Not one wrinkle on her body, face, or cellulite. How is that? Once again, there must be a human growth hormone involved. There's something happening there.
Dolly, tell us your secrets. And it's just amazing. And she has a new album. I think it came out already. It's called Rockstar. So she's still making
and
music.
she's done a lot of duets, right? I think Stevie Nicks
There's
is on it.
Stevie
Okay, so
Nicks.
side note, my favorite duet was Grandma with Julio. Not Grandma. She didn't do a duet with my
I was like,
grandmother.
Grandma, say?
My grandmother, our grandmother, used to listen to Julio Iglesias, and there was a duet with her and Julio Iglesias.
Oh, really?
And that till this day is still my favorite. I actually just listened to it a few days ago. I was going to put it in a yoga playlist, but I mean, wow.
But she's on this album. She's got everyone. She's got Steve Perry, Sting, Ann Wilson, Stevie Nicks, Elton John. I mean, there's more. But I'm like, that's wild.
That's great. Good for her.
Good for her.
Once again, that must just piss Martha Stewart right off because Martha Stewart is
Wasn't she recently on the cover of Vogue or something?
so
and she was trying to be
yeah. Yep. There's
not-
a new
you
commercial
can't
with her and
compete.
Snoop Dogg too.
that is a friendship that I also think is a national treasure.
Yeah, it is.
Just saying.
I mean, it's Snoop Dogg.
Just saying. Anyway, it's just like how if that doesn't make you feel good, then I don't know, you're dead inside. So that is amazing. The other little update I have is, which is almost comical at this point, the New York Times put out an article, and it was titled "School COVID Closures May Be the Most Damaging Disruption to Kids' Education in U.S. History."
Yeah, so I had this as just one of the main stories. I labeled it "Today in the World of Duh."
Can you believe that they're actually putting this out? A part of me is like, how dare you?
Do they need? I guess it's nice to put it in writing, but are we still questioning that this was a really stupid idea? This economy should have never closed. The schools should have never closed. And who was it that kept fighting to keep the schools closed? What was that? Was not Janet Yellen? Who was the education secretary? There's like a picture of her screaming. She got short brown hair. I don't remember her name either, but basically the teachers wanted to sit on their ass and not go back to school while they kept the kids at home. So in the New York...
And it was also these media outlets as well, if we rewind back a few years, that were also pushing for that.
A lot.
And enforcing that. And now we're going to... now that this is passed and we're actually realizing that some damage has been done here and kids are still trying to catch up.
You know what kills me the most is they knew that schools were not a hot spot. They knew
Yes.
that this was not a threat to children, and they still wanted to keep it shut because they wanted to feed their stupid narrative of the COVID virus killing the world. Mm-hmm. So
This is just another typical New York Times attempt to get on the record as having reported the truth. They do this all the time.
it's like too little, too late.
Exactly
Everybody
right.
already know. I mean,
And everybody with kids is not going to forget. No one has forgotten.
Have you seen any difference in your kids?
Well, mine were very small. So, the twins weren't in school yet. And my oldest was pre-K.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I remember we had to pull her out because she was only going 3 days a week, and they dropped to one day, and then it eventually was closed, which, okay, well, thank you for nothing. So I can't really say because they weren't learning. Like I felt the ones I think were most affected were the
Ones learning to
elementary,
read?
those
Math?
kids, even high schoolers. You know what I mean? Who are you trying to prepare for college and all of that, and you're missing out. I mean, those are the grades that are being counted towards moving on to a higher education afterwards.
Well, we want to talk about mental health. You can talk about the education aspect of it, but once again, I believe the ones in high school suffer the most mental health avenue. So the evidence is, thanks to the New York Times, the evidence is now in. And it's,
thank you.
And it's startling.
We didn't know.
The school closures that took 50 million children out of classrooms at the start of the pandemic may prove to be the most damaging disruption in the history of American education. Whew, okay. Set student programs in math and reading back by 2 decades
Yep.
and widespread achievement gap that separates poor and wealthy children. So, in this inclusive world that we live in, where everyone's supposed to be equal, we've literally just opened the gap up. We've made it wider. Will experience diminished lifetime earnings and become a significant drag on the economy. So basically what they're saying is this group of children is going to grow up to be less educated and less capable. Therefore, they're going to become a significant drag on the economy, meaning they're going to need more government programs. In fact, that's why I think it was so intentional to keep these kids out of school, because you're going to feed the government programs. You're going to just tick our way towards socialism and communism. And it was very intentional. So there's also, and this happens in the workplace. This also happens in...
We must have had the same article.
Oh, really?
The same notes.
Why don't you read that one then?
No, go ahead.
Well, I want to just connect Randy Weingartner.
Ah, that's her.
Randy Weingartner is the woman you were speaking about, the teachers union president, who now vociferously denies saying she wanted the school shut down. You can find many records of her saying it. This is just, again, and for anybody who thinks the New York Times is on board and they wrote this article just to, if you read the whole article, and I'm sure you have, you'll see where the bottom line is, they're putting pressure on the federal government to spend a lot more money to fix this now.
Yeah. They should talk to Eric Adams. He also wants the federal government to pay for the problem he created. So this is the most interesting, not the most interesting one. This is a key point. There is an epidemic of absenteeism. I believe this happens in the workplace too. It also happens when you make personal plans with people. Do you notice that? People just cancel now randomly because it's just okay to not show up. So students who grew accustomed to missing school during the pandemic continue to do so after the resumption of in-person classes. Millions of young people have joined the ranks of the chronically absent, those who miss 10% or more of the days in the school year, and for whom absenteeism will translate into gaps of learning. Once again, leaning into that drag on the economy and more government programs so we can just pay for everybody to sit around and do nothing.
Because I think, and I absolutely agree in the workplace too, when everything closed down, the expectations were set so low for students, for workplace employees. And I think that still carries over today. If you woke up and you just felt, tired or
my finger hurts, I don't want to go
I
to work.
binged Netflix and I went to bed too late.
Okay, so side note. So I know a friend who works for the very big convention center here in Rochester, New York. And she ended up making her way up through the ranks because the other manager that was supposed to be on site all the time basically took a leave of absence because according to him, he got COVID. And then he had chronic COVID, and then it turned into pneumonia. So he took 1.5 years off while they're running short-staffed, and she's just running everything at this point. He comes back for 3 months. Nobody will listen to this man. He's you're no longer an authority figure when you're absent that long. He gets a little tiny cyst on his hand and takes FML.
Stop.
But he never, and so what they had to do was they had to basically exit him out. But I'm pretty sure he got a lot of money to not come back, or he's still on FML.
But the fact that he was able to even keep his job throughout all of that, there's no one's held accountable.
And getting paid.
And getting paid.
while other people are working their ass off.
It's just crazy to me. It's like I said, there's no expectation anymore, and you can get away with anything.
Well, it kind of shined a light on how many lazy people there
Yes.
actually are.
Yes, or they're just taking advantage of the system, and because they know they're still going to get a paycheck. Well, why bother showing up?
I mean, when we hire somebody in, it used to be like you had to be there for 90 days before you generated
Yes.
sick days and
Or
vacation
benefits.
days. Now, the second you sign your paperwork, you get 48 hours of sick or personal days. That's like a week and a day. You have to give it to them. And
Is that a New York State thing?
of course, it's a New York State thing.
I don't know. I feel
You also have to pay for COVID now. Again, you have to pay 3 days.
no, you don't.
Yes, you do. I know. It's freaking. It was there. You used to have to pay 5 days.
What?
Then it went away, and now all of a sudden you have to pay 3 days.
Oh, so you're just going to get people saying they have COVID?
Exactly. Well, we require the test, which, by the way,
Proof of
you could find in Google Images.
Just take one of the over-the-counter ones. None of it's real.
So we will require something from like an urgent care or a doctor.
Okay.
But once again, you can just get those images on Google Images.
That's
so,
wild. That's wild.
Not that listen, if there's anything we've learned from COVID is just stay at home if you're sick. Like, it's fine. Just stay at home if you're sick. Don't get anyone else sick.
Well, yeah, and it goes for
But come
schools
back to
too.
work.
Like, obviously, if your kid has a fever or whatever, you don't send them. We were doing that before COVID. Most people, I think, you don't send your kids if they have a fever or certain, other ailments. But
You know, the other weird thing that happens now in the workplace is when a young man's fiance, girlfriend, wife has a baby, the guys take like 8 weeks off.
well, it's part of the paid family leave, right?
Yeah, but for what?
To freaking help.
Do they help?
They should.
Do they help? Or are they more in the way?
Well, I'm sure there are some that are in the way, but
I mean, truly think about it, though. I get like a few weeks, but 8 weeks?
yeah. See that before that wasn't even that was just coming into an effect when I had the twins, and it wasn't the full.
Okay, but you
8
had
thing.
twins. That's a little different.
Well, I'm not the only person. Other
Two
people are
babies
having
at once.
twins.
But these guys aren't having twins.
They're not.
They're sitting at home playing
However-
video games. They're not helping. These are not guys that are
Okay,
helping.
well, there's probably
Maybe I'm
some
being a
that are-
little judgmental. I don't know.
Who do you know?
I know a lot of guys that they're like, oh, she's having another baby. I get 8 weeks off.
In my opinion, if the father is taking 8 weeks, your ass should be helping from morning till night.
So
Morning till night. And if you're not, get back to work.
that's what I'm saying. Like, go make money. Like, that's
Yeah. Because
She-
you don't get
she
your full pay
cannot.
when you take that leave.
exactly. You don't get
Yes,
as much
if you're
money.
not going to help, there's other issues at large, but
and once again,
then go back to work.
I've never had a baby, but when you have a baby, it's the mother is in full
well, yeah.
like limelight here.
I will say though, like if you're somebody who you're having either whether it's your first, your fifth, however, and you have no family help where you live, then yes, I can see the father taking that much time being a huge help because everything does fall on the mom naturally.
Yeah, naturally.
But I was fortunate enough we have all our families here. But like if you're somebody that doesn't have that, then yeah, take the 8 weeks and
right.
freaking help.
it's a new thing I've noticed. I find it
You gotta send Chrissy pictures of proof that you're helping.
feeding,
Send her the schedule.
rocking the baby to sleep,
Bring the baby to
giving
the
the
office
mother a
and show
massage.
her that you had it.
Yeah.
Men can lactate now, right?
No.
Well, freaking
Oh, we
some
talked about
some
That's
think
another
they can.
topic. I'm sorry.
We'll save that for another day.
that. Yeah, it's the gray stuff. It's delicious. Don't believe me? Ask the dishes. That was what we were talking about.
I'm gonna throw up. Oh God.
I have a little clip here. This was because people want to blame Trump. This administration
now?
for everything. I don't know because the sky's blue. It's Trump's fault. I don't know. So this
It's like
is
those memes when like Blockbuster closed and it's Trump's fault. And he's like, I'm just hearing this for the first time. I didn't know.
But everyone wants to point the.
Yeah.
Listen, he did originally shut the economy down. He did originally close the schools, but he wanted them back open by fall of the first year of 2020. So
Yeah.
here is him in a little clip about that.
Opening schools, many set to start the fall semester next month, but isn't safe as the pandemic rages. The CDC saying full classes and no distancing pose the highest risk, but President Trump is insisting students must be inside those buildings in the fall. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
Tonight, the Trump administration insisting students return to school as the pandemic rages.
Kids need to be in school. They need to be learning. They need to be moving ahead.
We're going to be putting a lot of pressure on open your schools in the fall.
President Trump has called current CDC guidelines for reopening schools, which include face coverings and desks 6 feet apart, very tough and very impractical things. Today, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos says those guidelines are meant to be flexible.
There is nothing in the data that would suggest that kids being back in school is dangerous to them.
But the CDC says without mitigation measures, full-sized in-person classes pose the highest risk for COVID-19 spread. Some parents say with extensive precautions in place, in-person instruction could be a huge relief and essential to their children's learning.
Without that motivation piece.
The CDC, thanks guys. Between the CDCs and the clown you mentioned earlier, they kept those schools closed for another year.
That didn't age well, did it?
It
No.
did not. Like
Did
most
not.
of those things.
And now because the New York Times is saying that it was bad, it must be bad. So,
Well,
thanks,
yeah,
New
now
York.
it was terrible
Yeah,
that they were
3.5
down
years
and-
later. Thanks for waking up, guys.
And you know me on the media. Notice the word he used twice introducing the story as the virus
Was raging.
rages
Yeah.
on.
Yep.
I mean, you would think, you know,
Well, it's like when everyone was going to die that one winter.
yes.
If you weren't
Yeah,
vaccinated.
with Joe
I'm
Biden.
surprised they haven't started it already.
Well, they tried to. They tried to early September when
With the new.
Jean-Pierre,
Corinne Jean-Pierre,
Jean-Pierre,
the worst employee
she
ever.
literally at a one of her daily briefings said, "The government's going to start a full-blown push to get everybody boosted again."
It was the new booster, right? That was
the new
coming
booster
out.
that was coming out, and all of a sudden, it all went away.
Boosted and
You
vaxxed.
remember the big push never really came.
It kind of all went away when Jill got sick, and then Biden forgot
Right
his
after
mask, and then Biden finding his mask, and then Biden tripping on himself,
And then like breathing on that guy. He was
and then-
giving a medal to.
yeah, right.
I mean,
Sniffing his ear.
make it make sense.
Right. So I feel like that's when it died, is when they totally messed up that entire narrative.
Speaking of death.
Yes. Speaking of death, you and I, moving on to our next topic, you and I went to see a movie.
Yes.
I have to admit, I thought they could have made it so much better.
It was good. So the movie we're talking about, it's called After Death. It's by Angel
a
Studios.
secret.
And it's about near-death experiences. So the movie it's more of a documentary based, and it's people who are sharing their accounts of their near-death experience. Also, doctors are on there talking about kind of their research and what they believe to be true.
So they described this movie as where science meets religion.
Right, right. And I agree. I mean, it was definitely good, and it was interesting, and it's cool to hear like firsthand accounts from the actual people. But yeah, I feel like they could have done more with it.
I feel like they could have gotten a lot more stories in there. They could have gotten
more stories.
few more doctors, maybe.
Yeah.
So this is a movie by Angel Studios. This is the same. This is the same people that put out Sound of Freedom.
Yes. Yes.
And it was the same type of setup where you can forward tickets on, you can pay it forward, things along those lines.
And it was only out. Is it still out even? It was limited time.
I don't think it's. I don't know. I haven't checked the movie theater since we've left. So.
Yeah, it was another limited release movie in the theaters.
So people were clinically dead before being resuscitated, and some people were dead longer than others.
Yes.
Everyone, what was interesting, here's that word again. What was intriguing about this was, I guess one of the points that they were making is that all near-death experiences are different. However, they follow the same type of process. And that's why more doctors are starting to come to the forefront, was because they're starting to see a pattern in what's happening in these near-death experiences. And everyone that we heard from in the movie was very similar.
A lot of it was similar.
The process, even though their experiences were different, their messages were different, they still did like specific things in a very specific order.
Yeah. So a lot of the experiences or journeys of this near-death experience has to do with having the out-of-body experience. I think almost everybody was saying they had that experience of like seeing themselves, and knowing what was either whether they were in the hospital or if they were at an accident site.
Well, knowing things that they should have never known,
and what tools the doctors used to do their surgeries, and things that you were completely unconscious for. So out-of-body experiences, moving through a tunnel was another one. The feeling of like just being free or feeling like immense pleasure and joy was another one out of a lot of stories. And then being greeted by deceased loved ones too. So it's interesting to me because yes, you have people who've been studying this for decades, and you have all these scientific research and studies, and I think that can take you so far. But I truly believe, yes, there is science that can back up some of this, but I also just think the rest of that is a higher power. I think that's just God.
Which will always be the unknown, and it's supposed to always be the unknown.
You can't scientifically prove things like that, no matter how hard you try.
It's like Santa Claus. You know, you have to believe in him to get your presents.
Yes.
If you don't believe in him, then you don't get presents. That's how it was in my house anyway, so I just believed in him until I was like 16 years old.
I still believe in him? What do you mean?
He's not real?
Yeah.
So I actually counted each of the people that were in the documentary. I remember reading when I was younger, just a little side note, that there was not an experiment, but there were doctors studying the actual weight of people. So right before death and then the moment after death, as they would weigh the physical body. And there was actually, because they believe a soul has weight to it. Because, you know, what makes you you? If you listen to our conspiracy theory episodes, consciousness was something that we talked a lot about, like your soul, your consciousness, who you are. Has nothing to do with the body you're in, your face, your feet, nothing. It's your consciousness. So I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, I lost it.
The weight you're weighing.
Yeah, so they believe that your soul weighs something. So they would measure these folks in 2 different times. And what they actually found out was that you weigh less after you die. And it's like 0.00, I mean, like it was like so minute, but it was a lesser weight than you were alive. I just remember reading that when I was younger.
I mean, I
don't know if that has any like basis now, but
I believe it. I mean, I think I'm trying to find my note here where I had it. They were saying, you know, time of death is considered when you go into cardiac arrest and for the body. However, then there was other studies like, okay, once that happens, but what happens to the brain after death, and how do you measure that? And there were some studies that showed that scientists found that a surge of electricity enters the brain moments before death, and that even if your heart stops and your breathing stops, the human mind remains conscious for about 20 seconds, 2 to 20 seconds.
Because they showed that was one of the things the doctors were showing in the documentary is the brain activity that was going on. But he did say, listen, we know so little about the brain. We can only show that there's activity happening. We don't know what that activity means, which is crazy.
And he was saying it could be, you know, there's been people that have said it could be your life kind of flashing before your eyes. You know, people say you kind of see all your memories and stuff. But they don't, you don't know. You don't know. And you won't ever know. But it's just amazing to think about.
It is amazing to think about. And I don't think we're supposed to know.
No.
Because then we would sabotage ourselves.
But it's just like, how do you, and this is probably not a good door, but like, how do you not believe that there's something after?
You know, I know a lot of people that think that when you die, that's it. And I don't agree. Listen, after my father's death, way too many things happened where I'm like, he's still here. Yeah. Like there was a time, my best friend's father just passed and we were at the cemetery. And all of a sudden, I just got this urge, and she was standing there next to me, and I grabbed her arm, and I turned her toward the sunlight, and the wind started blowing on our face. And I looked at her, and I said, see, he's still here.
Yeah, there's those signs.
You just have to listen for it. You know, it's not a physical relationship anymore. It's a spiritual relationship. And she just started bawling. I said, but you have to know he's still here. I don't know what made me do that at that moment in time. And I don't know what made the wind blow at that moment in time.
Yeah.
But there's no way that this is it. This is the hard part, what we do down here. And everybody else said in this documentary how amazing
they didn't want to come
back.
back.
They did not want to come back.
They did not want to come back.
In fact, I don't remember which one it is. Maybe we'll get to it once I read through it. But there was one guy who was severely depressed when he got back. What was his name? Was that Howard? Nope, that wasn't the small intestines guy. But basically, he really struggled when he came back because he was so upset he was back on Earth.
Because according to him, you see heaven, or just you feel so at peace and happy. Like, why would you want to come back to Earth? And in the documentary, he really, really struggled with that.
In some books I've read, they state that, and I've mentioned this before, I think in one of our conspiracy theory episodes. When we're down here on Earth, we're here to learn lessons. Mm-hmm. And there's two things that are guaranteed is the day you are born and the day you die. And if something happens to you prior to your death date, one or two things can happen. An accident where divine intervention will happen, something along these lines. You're not supposed to be dead yet. You have to live out to your dead date because it's like a contract you have with God. And then the other one is suicide. And they say that if you commit suicide, which is before your death date, you live in this dark room until your death date. So a lot of these books you read will tell you that, like, heaven is heaven and it's amazing, but when you're put down here, it's because you need to learn specific lessons. And if you miss those lessons, then you don't really move forward in heaven because there's several levels or whatever. And I'm not an expert on this. My mother happens to be, but I just don't believe that when you die, it's over.
I don't believe that it's just nothing.
That
it's just nothing.
What's the point?
There is not one.
Even if we reincarnate on a different planet and we have 10 heads and 14 fingers, there's got to be something. This isn't it.
This is not it.
It's too hard down here for this to be it.
And even, when you hear of all these stories from people, it just, how does that not make you believe, AJ has the story.
Yeah, you wrote a poem about it, didn't you?
No.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
You don't want to talk about it.
Are you going to be shy about it?
Well, no, years ago, I did have surgery and I did flatline, and I did have one of those experiences where I was looking down and it was kind of surreal. I know I wasn't, it didn't seem real. And I saw, I heard the nurses yelling my name, and I just listened to them. And then I finally realized, I said, oh, they're calling my name. I guess I better answer. And that's when I snapped out of it. I remember when I first looked up, I saw faces, just faces that were calling out my name. It wasn't the nurses' faces. And it took me a while to realize that I should be answering them. And I wasn't supposed to just let this go. And I did. And that's when I got woken up, and they came in and they tried to, they zapped me with some wands.
Do you remember being very calm during all of that?
Very calm.
That's what several other folks said, is they're there and they see the panic happening in the room, or they're hearing the panic.
Right, it was panic all around me.
Yeah,
and it was you're like an observer. That's the best word you could use. You're observing this. And then suddenly it just hits you that, well, it hit me that I needed to respond because they were calling my name. And that's when I kind of snapped out of it. And after the second zap, I was kind of yelling at them, saying, because I felt my heart flutter after every zap. And someone runs into the room. The room was full of people already. And they were just, the one guy said, stop hitting him with that. He's up. And I was up. And I never saw that guy the rest of the week. So, it's an amazing experience to go through that. At the time, you don't make a big deal of it, except for the fact that, how did I flatline? But at the end of the day, I guess, you look back at it now and go, wow, I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that's actually experienced that. A lot of these stories, though, they tell you much more elaborate things, like they've actually gone somewhere. I was still in the room. I was probably right in that transition of, and it was just one of those points in your life where you really thank God that, everything worked out okay. And in fact, when I was during the rest of my hospital stay, they never used the word that I flatlined. No one ever came to me and actually said to me, although I knew that. My parents knew it. My wife knew it. And when we finally got to my first therapy session, she leaves the room to go check on something. She left my entire medical file on the table, and I opened it up, and there it was, patient flatlined temporarily. And he, came out of it and all that sort of stuff. So then I finally had to go to my doctor later and go, why wouldn't anybody be honest with me in the hospital? And he frankly told me, why? Would it have been good for you to hear that then? Well. And so I got it a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, it is a very, very unique experience to have gone through it.
So your story also matches up with these other folks in the series of events.
Yeah, in a couple instances it does, because you are an observer to what is going on in your room, and that was
wow.
That was really different.
Wow, Uncle.
And you're not panicking; you're just literally watching.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you're watching. Then I just remember me consciously thinking to myself, "Oh, they're talking to me. They're calling my name on. I guess I better answer them."
Did you see like a light or anything?
No, I did not. I did not see a light that I remember saying it's a light. I would just remember, the first thing you see is looking down, and then I saw like almost like the Walmart faces. There wasn't like a physical face to it, but like, and then, I heard then the words hit me. The words hit me, and the nurses at the time were actually shaking me. The two young nurses were actually shaking my shoulders, wanting me to snap out of it, thinking that I just fainted. In fact, that was what the term they used. The head of cardiology came in and said, "You just fainted. You just passed out." And I'm thinking, and that's really the line I was given until I was released and went to therapy. And I knew something else was wrong because, there were, what I heard was stat blue, code blue. My room number was being on the intercom. People were running into the room. They zapped me. So it was more than a fainting spell. It was my heart just kind of flatlined for whatever brief time it was. And I also remember having this body flush. The liquid was just pouring out of my body. I mean, it was like almost like a woman might have when she's got
a hot flash.
A hot flash. But literally someone had covered my face from behind, and it was an EMT who was delivering another patient. She came the next day to check on me, to believe it or not, and she goes, "I've never seen anything like this. I tried to pull your head back so you wouldn't fall forward." And she goes, the water was literally running through her fingers. That's how much liquid was coming out of me at the time, the sweat just pouring out. And she goes, "I've never seen anything like that in my life."
Wow.
But anyway, so there was, that's my little 2 cents. I'm in one of the group, but I never made a big deal of it. I never wanted to make
some of them said that. Like, they didn't want to say anything when they knew that had happened, because people might be like, well,
yeah, you never know how to take it. You know,
it's probably a lot to process.
The other thing I found intriguing. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. That's kind of incredible. The other thing I found intriguing was 23% of NDEs don't go to a light place. They actually go to a dark place.
There was at least one in that documentary.
So there were 2. Howard Storms, where he was dying, reports a group of people depicted in hooded robes met his spirit and took him away into the darkness. They ultimately began to bite, scratch, disembowel him, and he started to cry out for Jesus. He remembered the song "Jesus Loves Me" from his childhood, and then all of a sudden he was snapped like a rocket ship up through a tunnel into like a galactic heaven. But he was an atheist.
Yeah.
There was also Paul Ojeda. He committed suicide via cocaine overdose, during which he found himself falling through an endless black tunnel until he cried for God's help. And once again, it was like a rocket ship. It shot him up. And his story was where he actually spoke to God.
They heard him, right?
Yeah, or and he was also an atheist. So not here to tell you what religion to be, but that higher power. Once again, there's always that dark and that light to notice. I just found that
it's just fascinating,
super fascinating.
Yes.
I was gonna say interesting, but I like your word better.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
Yeah, the only other story I had from that documentary was Don Piper, who was in that really bad car accident. He was.
He also wrote the book 90 Minutes to Heaven.
He did.
90 Minutes in Heaven.
And I think they made did they make a movie of it?
Yeah.
He was declared dead by paramedics on the scene, and for the next 90 minutes, he says he visited heaven, talked to deceased loved ones, and even saw angels. He was crossing a narrow bridge, and a tractor-trailer truck crossed the center line and hit him head-on. And he said he died instantly. In his story, he said 90 minutes. So he had a lengthy time where he was dead. And he said he was standing at the gates of heaven. He said there are 12 according to the Revelation, and he was at 1. I was surrounded by people and I had known and loved in life who had preceded me in death, and we were having a spectacular reunion. They looked great. If you want to look great, heaven is where you want to be. And they looked great. Back on the bridge, I looked terrible. And he said he remembered hearing music, all different kinds of music, but not clashing with each other. Just sounds that he said you would never hear on earth. And it was just the most peaceful thing he's ever heard. And he said he saw colors that you would never see on earth there. There were angels of all shapes and sizes. Some had different numbers of wings. So he had like a full-blown experience. And, shared his story after he came back to life. But again, it's just...
And these people that came back, they didn't come back to just a really easy life. A lot of them were tested.
They were.
That woman...
yes, with the...
I have her somewhere. Mary Neal, Dr. Mary Neal. She was she was trapped underwater for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
She ended up losing her son later on in life. There were relationships torn apart by these NDE. I mean, they didn't come back to Earth and went skipping through life and was just excited next time they get to go to heaven.
She even said, she's like, you kind of have this thought where because you went through an experience like that you're kind of protected in life when you return, or you're shielded from things. And she said that's absolutely not the case.
No.
She lost a child.
We're here to learn lessons.
Yes. And she said it's not any easier than anybody else's life or experiences. So it's just crazy.
It is crazy.
And there's so many stories out there too.
More and more, which is why this is getting a little bit more attention now. And they're starting to combine all this information together, which is why doctors are starting to get involved too. So who knows? I mean, what happens when we die?
I don't think we'll ever really know.
You know who would have the most incredible story about it after death experience? Would be Lazarus. I mean, can you imagine if there was social media in the time of Jesus and Lazarus? He resurrected Lazarus after 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad Lazarus couldn't tell you about what he experienced being dead for 3 days.
This is your Catholic school education. Me and Meghan are like, I
remember Lazarus.
Lazarus. Oh, him. Yes.
That guy.
All right, guys, we're going to go home and read the Bible. Anything else?
No, I think, after this movie came out, I'm curious to see how well it did. But I think we're going to keep hearing a lot more about this.
I hope they do more, or at least release more information.
I do too. I think if anything, and again, whatever you believe in, it gives you kind of hope that this isn't it, and there is something much greater than we can ever imagine waiting for us.
You got to be up to something bigger than yourself,
and to do good while you're here.
I love this saying that I heard a little while ago. Sometimes miracles are just ordinary people doing really great things.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening today.
Yes, thank you.
Go be grateful and go
do something good for someone today.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Bye.